do it that way. My buddy from Motorola is working on his way over here. It's like, good, you haven't started yet?
Cool.
He's the guy I keep trying to convince to apply for positions on our listing.
Yeah.
Get him out of there. I don't know. They're grabbing pizza first. They know how things work.
Smart move.
I remember his first name is Dan. What's his last name? Doesn't he run the releases or something? Or used to?
It's totally escaping me right now.
Still pouring.
How was tonight?
Okay.
No, you raised up. Yeah. Just you.
Yeah. Yeah. Just want to make sure that. And then just grab you that. Cool. Oh, hey Shree, come here for a second.
I'm just trying to set up some more theater space. Nice. You're gonna ping me the.
I just forwarded it to you. If you don't get it, let me know.
Set up, then I can do the intro when I start.
Sure.
I realize that a lot of people here are from Nielsen. This is usually the most well-attended meetup we've had in like months.
Go Nielsen! Woo!
go full.
Yeah. I should probably apologize in advance. The reason we don't have beer is because of all the people that pay to show up.
Usually the beer should buy benefits. Recently I've learned down in the city that once in a while I'll get like one or two people who want to, have a cocktail or something. But usually I'm sitting there being like, oh, you get free beer, and one's like, I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, out here, I would imagine that most people are like, maybe I'll have one, but I gotta drive home.
Well, that's the thing. Like I'm taking the train into the city, so I'm that time away from the kids for the first time in
Right.
20 weeks. Now I'm not trainer. Thank you so much. You're right.
Just probably, I'll ask you some questions. Yep. Yep. Hey, Jason.
Yeah. When you
It's because of the beat up. It's not because of the work. This morning, yeah. Yes. Wow.
Well, you did 50 when you don't mind.
So I usually get like my stuff is long, like an hour away from anything. Usually it's like 3 to 1 minutes. Some of them you yeah. Earl, how's it going? Yes, sir. Yeah, that's a lot. There's also a spot right next to Greg that's smoke you Give Daryl to set up, or should we just go on?
We can start. It's okay.
Alright, so
We don't actually need Daryl here for anything.
You just look good in front of the
No, I'm just kidding.
So, all right. Hi, everybody. My name's Art, if you don't already know me. I work for Sencha. I'm actually based here in the Chicagoland area. I work from home, which is in Antioch. Any of you know where Antioch is? Yeah, it's nowhere near where we are right now. But, in any event, thank you for coming to our first meetup here at the Nielsen offices. Hopefully one of many to come. Usually we meet downtown, usually on a Thursday evening, so if coming downtown is convenient, then please join us, and if not, we try to record everything on Google Hangouts, which gets uploaded to YouTube, so if you ever miss a meeting, hopefully you'll be able to catch it on YouTube at some later point. Next slide, please. All right, so I'd like to thank Sencha for covering things like our meetup.com costs and some of the swag we're going to give away today, as well as if we were in the city, it would be CNX, but tonight is Nielsen, who's hosting our venue and our food. So thank you, Nielsen. Yay, Nielsen. As well as JetBrains is so nice as to allow me to raffle off a license for any of their products, assuming we hit critical mass, which we have tonight. So that'll be one of our prizes to raffle off later. And finally, you can't read this in the back at all, but if you're interested in speaking, sponsoring, being involved in any way, or if there's a topic you would love to hear about in some way, shape, or form related to Sencha, let me know, and I'll get you involved. So without further ado, yay, I'll pass it over to Paul, who's got the meat of today's presentation, followed by Daryl.
Thanks, Art. So I'm just going to walk through a couple of high-level things here just to kind of put some context around it. This is the first time that we've been the presenter for the group, so I thought it was a good opportunity to, for some of you, introduce you a little bit to Nielsen and what we do, and the products that we're specifically looking at today as far as what we've developed in-house. The product and the platform that we've developed in the front end is all in the Ext JS. It's called Answers on Demand. It's what we call the global buy platform. Nielsen's divided up into two major groups. One is what we call our watch business, where we measure television and radio and books and iTunes, and that's what everybody knows us for. What people don't typically know us for, but constitutes about 65+% of our actual business, is that we also measure what people are buying, and we buy the information from retailers, and we do some work with that. We apply a lot of statistical analysis, and then we present that back, in this case, software as a service, to many different retail and manufacturing clients. Our idea is really by pulling that watch data and that buy data together to really give that complete view of what customers are doing in the world. We pull data from all sorts of different places. We've got watch data coming from Hulu and Google and Yahoo and Netflix and Facebook and all sorts of different things like that. We've got buy data coming in from Walmart and Target and Jewel and Safeway and all the other different places that you typically would buy stuff. You know, if you buy it at a club store like Sam's, you buy it in a normal store like Walmart, or you buy it in a convenience store like 7-Eleven, we've still got it all tracked in that way. We're not tracking you, but we're tracking statistically you, right? And so it gives us a good idea for, you know, telling retailers and folks like that all sorts of information and insights to be able to help them understand what to do as far as guide them through an analysis, give them some of those dynamic reporting elements, and be able to share with them, you know, where should you be shipping more products? Where should you not worry about this? Where's the best place to run this new promotion on this product? A buy one, get one free coupon in the paper. All that type of insightful information is stuff that we do for them. And the on-demand tool gives them a lot of flexibility because it adds all of those different elements where they're able to do a lot of creativity and add their own elements and slice and dice things the way that they'd like to. Most traditional organizations would go into a project like this and figure out which of the traditional business intelligence tools is going to fit them best. A Cognos, a MicroStrategy, a Business Objects, or a different type of tool that may be out there that does this stuff fairly well. But because of the way that Nielsen treats the data, because of the modeling that we do against it, because of some of the analysis that we put into that, there's a lot of work and a lot of math, frankly, that goes into this that you're not necessarily going to be able to do with one of those traditional tools. And so we've actually built our own homegrown system in order to be able to provide this to our clients. Our data consists of 3 major areas of data: scan, panel, and loyalty. The scan data is literally what's being scanned in a store. So every time something goes through the scanner, it gets picked up, it goes on a receipt, it gets sent out to us the next day, and we're able to integrate that data over the course of time and then into our statistical models to be able to generate a really good, complete view of what's out there. Panel data starts to allow us to get a little more tactical into who this person is and what they're doing. So panel data, we've got about 250,000 households across 25 countries. Those folks let us have some demographic information about them, things about their household income, who's in the house, who does the shopping, what their age group is, things like that. And that helps us to get a better idea of where those types of products are actually being purchased from what we call a segmentation level. And then loyalty then gives us the opportunity to be able to track the actual loyalty card data. So with a Safeway, Jewel doesn't have it anymore, but you saw the Jewel cards and things like that. They give some basic discounts, but that gives them a little bit more information about who bought it rather than just a random person. We don't track credit card data to be able to figure out who it is because that doesn't really tell us anything. Credit card companies give us data about their people. But loyalty programs, you obviously are signing up for and choosing to make that information available that way. So clients for us would be manufacturers and retailers, specifically in this consumer packaged goods area. Kraft, Procter & Gamble, Unilever, Pepsi, Coke, Hershey's, you name it, it's probably on there. And all of these folks are very interested in the type of information we're able to provide to them. And then retailers like Safeway, over in Europe, Tesco, Walmart, like I said, Target, Jewel, all these other different places, also very interested in the retail path, as well as the fact that most of those companies also now have their own private label brands. And so not only are they the retailer, but they're also the manufacturer and the distributor and everything. And so they're very interested in seeing this type of data as well. So into our reporting application, and I'm going to show the application shortly. Daryl, do you want to walk through any of this part of it, or do you want me to just keep going?
You can keep going, but I could say sort of the history of it, and there's a lot of people in here that I think know the history. We started on this web application framework piece of this 2 years ago, 3 years. I don't remember when this was.
3
years ago. We actually started in jQuery. It was sort of the standard at Nielsen at the time, and we started. You'll see eventually how sort of UI heavy this thing is. And we started getting into jQuery UI, and we had more and more components from that. And what you ended up with was a system that we had, every author had a different style, everything had different sort of errors in it. It would have been impossible to track down what we were doing here. So that really, I think the first choice was Sencha when we started looking around, because we had people that were coming from the world of Flex, that were comfortable in the sort of MVC framework that this was going to provide, and then the Java developers as well could sort of catch on to this thing much more easily than in jQuery, which is much more top-down focused rather than bottom-up. So it's a little bit of the history, and that was, like I said, probably 3 years ago when that all started, and the report builder's been since last year, I think.
Going on
2000 December.
going on a year and a half.
Something like that.
2013. Year and a half.
Yeah. So you'll see in the demo, it's a really cool application. For those of you who haven't seen it, so let's waste no more time and show it.
Sure. So I'm going to drop right out of there, and I'm going to dive into the application here. Pretty much everything you see in this application is Ext JS. The only piece that I think isn't is right up here on the top menu bar, which is part of our portal. But everything from there down is our Ext JS applications. So we actually have 4 separate applications that are working together in order to provide this particular solution. The 4 applications are, first of all, AWAF, or the Answers Web Application Framework, and that is what you see right here. On the left side, you see navigation to be able to go through report templates, take a look at guided reports, or what we call roadmaps, select between reports or favorites, saved selections, things that you may be interested when you're slicing and dicing and reporting on data. And on the right-hand side, we have what we call a message center. And the message center gives us information about reports that have been recently run. If you're running a report that is going to take a little while, you can ask it to notify you later. It'll drop you a message, and then when you come back, you look at the message center and click it to open it, and that way it's ready to go. Lots of different pieces of information, though, that become available, and these are sort of the plumbing aspects to a solution like this, where we need to be able to make users aware of what's going on, but it's not really the meat of what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. The second application is the Report Builder tool. And actually, I guess before I go into Report Builder, maybe what I ought to do is go into the data. So hopefully this report is still good, and we'll jump right into it. The data selector first gives us a context. We choose where we're going. In this case, I'm going to use our syndicated data. That way I'm not giving away any clients' data that they don't want me sharing with people. And this is a data selector application. Now, it may on the surface look similar to some of the data selection tools that you've seen with other BI packages, but behind the scenes it's leveraging a number of different things where inside of our dimensions and things like that we have a variety of characteristics that you would typically search on, but we also have hierarchical elements. We also have separate groups of dimensional characteristics that are aggregated in different ways. And so in order to do all of these different things, we have different top-level items like groups and hierarchies and characteristics that we can then drive through. The core elements that we keep our data grouped in include markets, which could be regional, which could be maybe country-based, state-based, things like that, or could be markets based on food versus drug versus club, something like that. There's a variety of different ways that we keep those markets broken up. Yeah?
Are you in a database on the back end of this thing?
We are. So, yeah, this data selector tool is actually hitting what we call our metadata database. And in order to provide, I mean, we're not going to hit our main database. Behind the scenes for the actual reporting, you're hitting a very large database. We actually did an interesting analysis about 6 months ago at Nielsen, and we tried to calculate about how much data are we holding right now, and we got into the 54, 55 petabyte region. It was kind of ridiculous. Granted, there is a certain amount of duplication in some of those areas based on different aggregation techniques and things like that, but we have a tremendous amount of data that goes into that. Now, this particular application is not necessarily hitting the petabyte area, but we're definitely processing and going through in the region of 100 terabytes in order to do some of these things. We're actually using IBM Netezza in order to do that. Netezza is an interesting animal. While it's able to do relatively straightforward queries against extremely large sets of data in a quick manner, it doesn't scale. In other words, it scales data. It scales how much you have in there, but it doesn't scale how many threads you can have.
It's pretty much why things like how to.
Yeah.
So how many users?
So we've actually created some interesting layers in between our business intelligence engine and the data in order to throttle and in order to do load balancing across Netezza, which it doesn't do on its own very well, if at all. And so behind the scenes, we actually have across all the buy data, I would say we're probably pushing 35, 36 Netezza servers. But in the production environments, 12.
So what middleware, how many users are in?
How many users? So on a given day, I believe we're running somewhere in the range of 12,000 queries. Many of them are cached, but some of them are brand new queries. And I believe we're servicing at a unique user level on a daily basis around 1,000, probably a little more than that. As far as named users in the system, there's 30,000 people.
Yeah, and also we are reaching the concurrency of close to 300 to 400 range right now. That's the concurrence.
The middleware, Java, Tomcat, the metadata database, composite down to Oracle, Netezza, back into it.
Yeah.
Middleware more specifically is still Spring MVC, if I'm not wrong about that. So it's pretty standard underneath the covers. I mean, this is a very different kind of application from some others you might be used to, because this is not about scale of the number of users hitting the thing. It's about the scale of the stuff underneath it.
Sure.
That's how you do it. So the problems here were how do you get this data back quickly? How do you deal with massive amounts of data that the users have to deal with? So it's a different set
Yeah.
of problems.
We do a lot of caching. And to be honest with you, a lot of people are hitting the same types of data in the same types of ways.
And that's independent sort of of Sencha.
That piece is, so that's in the middle layer. The caching is facilitated by the AWAF application, which is in the Ext JS application that you're seeing here. But it's only at a facilitation level in some of those base elements. The cache itself is stored in both Couchbase, and then the larger data files are just stored to a NAS. And that, frankly, because they're too large to be efficiently handled by NoSQL. Oh Lord, what are we at right now?
Yeah, 4.2.
4.2, yeah.
Are we half Even
Yeah.
Everything across the board is 4.2.
So this is, again, the data selector product. Markets, as I mentioned, are one of the key dimensions that we work with. Products is another key dimension. That'll talk about different ways to categorize products, whether they be a drug product, a food product, a paper product, something like that. We have that data all the way down to the UPC level. So within a particular product, you would probably have maybe 10 or 15 different UPCs based on sizes and colors and shapes and all those kinds of wonderful things. And then periods, obviously, time is a key aspect to this. Our data is aggregated in order for it to be even remotely efficient at a weekly level. That being said, we do have that rolled up in other ways to make it simpler if we can. And we do keep in a different source system for this. We keep all of our daily transaction data that we get from our clients. And then facts is the third tab that you see there. And the facts that we have, I'll just give you sort of an idea of the types of things here. Within the database itself, we have 30, 40 core facts.
Somewhere in that area.
Is it more? Might be more.
Base facts.
Base facts?
About 100.
Is it 100 now? Yeah.
And derived is a lot.
Derived is over 2,000.
Yeah.
And so 100 basic facts that are actually in the database, but mathematically we're calculating well over 2,000 different facts that are available for selection here. The reason for that, again, is because some of these facts, and sort of where Nielsen's secret sauce exists, where we actually have to, you can't store it because it depends on what you selected. It's a non-additive fact. And so in order to calculate percentages of market share, well, the percent of the market share depends on, do you want to see percent of market share based on the market that this product exists in, as far as we're concerned, or do you care about it based on the markets that you've selected? And so within this broader definition of a market that you've dynamically created, we may need to recreate that percentage. And so we can't store that type of stuff. It needs to be calculated on the fly. Data selector gives us the opportunity to change contexts. It has all sorts of interesting search functions in here where we may want to go through and search for different types of base or average facts, EQ facts as we call them, feature and display facts. You can see that this just goes on and on and on and on. I mean, just inside of dollar share in category, there's a bunch there, subcategory levels, at the segment levels. Again, all these different things are calculating in different ways, shapes, and forms, and our customers are very specifically looking for that calculation to be done that particular way. And most likely because we've taught them that. So that's the data selector application.
I would do products real quick. I mean, obviously one of the, like I talked about sort of size of data and things like that. That's where I remember this was pretty interesting because, you know, Sencha definitely helped because we were returning back large amounts of data. And how do we get the paging right? How do we, you know, how do you just deal with that, right? What does the model look like? What does the memory consumption look like in the browser? So, you know, this was like one of the first things I think we did in the Ext JS. So it was sort of a lot of, I think it was Perler sitting there kind of hacking at stuff for like a week trying to figure out what he was doing. But we definitely got to the point where we understood, you know, the different ways of doing these things and did a lot of refactoring. Remember Jason, what? There's the guy in the back who fixed it all.
Yeah, when we go in, you see how quickly these results are coming back, and when we get into subcategory, you're down to the 1600 level. When you hit on something like UPC, I mean, look at the number of items that are coming back here, right? I mean, yeah, it's
4.2 million or so.
4.9 million.
4.9
So
million.
you're saying you could scroll through that?
So
We were
paged
paging through it. We were paging through it. We did mess around with
65,000 pages.
something like
yeah,
that,
65,000 pages there. Yeah.
So we did mess around with infinite scrolling. There was just some resistance, I think, to how that was going to work.
There
and
was
it's also how you do these checks. Like if you
That
show
might
how you
actually
do
break
things,
the limits of what we consider-
I think it probably would,
Yes.
to tell you the truth, because we're getting near
When
infinite.
we say infinite, we mean infinite as much memory as the browser will let you have. And
Exactly,
I don't think
yeah.
the browser lets you have
Infinite memory.
4.9 million data records in the browser.
Yeah,
No?
because the records can be kind of heavy as well. What's
Yeah.
coming back across.
I could do it on my computer at home. I think my browser has enough
So,
memory.
so what protocol are you using to do that query?
This is just straight up REST,
Yeah,
isn't it?
REST.
So the middle tier has REST endpoints, and this is coming back as JSON across the wire. It's not using any of the remoting sort of things in there. And the idea was to stay as close to the plane as possible. So if we had like a mobile app, eventually you could consume the same sort of data behind it.
Historically, one of the other challenges that we had was when we actually created the data selector, the infinite scroll grid had not actually been added in yet. So all of our experimentation was with our own infinite scrolling implementation on the standard Sencha grid. When it came out, we played around with it a bit, but we did actually hit limits outside of data selector in some of our not quite 5 million rows, but maybe only 2 million rows. We were still hitting particular points where on a standard browser app clients, and let me be real honest, our clients do not stay up to date with the latest and greatest hardware and things like that. In fact, when we rolled this out a year and a half ago, one of the biggest points of contention was the fact that two of our largest clients refused to upgrade from Internet Explorer 8 as their standard browser and wouldn't let people install anything else.
They're kind of moving
If
ahead.
you want to ask me afterwards where you never want to work, I'll let you know.
So does this run on all browsers?
It does, absolutely.
It supports
When
A,
we say
right?
all browsers, the browsers that we've done testing on are obviously Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, Opera, Safari, and that was about it.
I think
What
I down
patterns?
to 8.
XJS brags about being able to run on any desktop browser. The latest version of XJS also runs on tablet.
So
It's very WebKit friendly, certainly.
I'll be very, very frank. This application runs just fine on a mobile tablet browser. We've never had issues with it even a year ago. There are one or two objects and functions which include dragging and dropping that I'll show you later on, where drag and drop doesn't necessarily work in the implementation that we have right now. But we're looking forward to that a lot.
sorry, go ahead. That's a lot of questions.
Yeah. As far as the 4 million rows was, human factors have to come into play with that at some point, right? Any thought to doing like an auto-suggest or a sort of fuzzy
If you
search?
do the look for, we do that sort of thing.
Oh, okay, good.
The idea, we wanted to limit a lot of this, but we generally got pulled not to. We tried to make it basically where you got straight into an auto-suggest sort of thing on these bigger categories, but it was always pushback if they want to see everything.
Yeah, well, we were looking at autocomplete and using possibly even Elastic at that point to do some of that stuff. It was slick, but as it always goes, there's pushback from the business to get it out the door, and so it's there and there's ideas on it, but it hasn't been implemented yet. But when you do a quick search, like I just searched for box, right, and so we're now down to 419,000 rows that include the word box. Obviously, it's going to have a lot. It's a pretty generic word, but those searches are incredibly fast. The metadata behind the scenes is running actually on Oracle, and those queries are shooting back to an Oracle database in order to pull back these records.
Most of it, not all of it.
Was it?
Most of it, not all of it.
Most, well,
Anyway, yeah, that's a complicated story.
If we
Doesn't
really
matter.
wanted to walk through the stack today,
Can you,
we'd
like,
probably be
select some-
embarrassed, so we won't walk through all of it.
Can you select some things and add some things and show like the summary features, and then we can jump
Definitely.
into Builder real quick.
So grab things here, and I can either drag them over, I can choose add, I can do whatever there. But then when we come over here, we can also choose to, oh, excuse me, to get back to it. So I can grab a couple of these, and then we can choose to sum those, right? Where's the sum? Thank you.
That's what
There you go. And so what this allows us to do is this actually gives us the chance at this level to define our own element as a sum of these products. And so at that point, when we start mapping it to columns or to a series of a chart or something like that, it gets its own special definition with its own name.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the other nifty little features there that really impressed the business as soon as we put them in were, like, you could do ordering over here really easily. You can drag them around, move them up and down. Undo was a big thing, right? So you've added a bunch of stuff you can undo really quickly. Another thing we probably won't demo it, but this is backing into local storage to some extent, so that you could see in this sort of application people can run up against that timeout in their sessions on a security system. So the idea is we back this into local storage, and it's always kind of keeping it back there. So we'd always show demos where we just kill everything and come back in and show we're right back where we need to be. So that was a huge thing for the end users. But there's all sorts of little gizmos in here. But I would say Report Builder has a lot more, even more than that. So
Let's jump in.
Jumping into.
Pardon
Yeah.
me?
I wouldn't say this one so much, but Builder is more so.
Not that one, but
Yeah.
Builder definitely took us into responsive design. And so this is the Report Builder tool. I just happened to have a report that I started up earlier because it already had some selections that I knew were good. Now, and what have I done here?
I can say as well the Senchas here. We definitely, very early on, we kind of looked at Sencha Architect as one of the things to kind of model after. So you might see some of the similarities of that there. So it had some good ideas about how to do these things.
It's the
So-
best way of flattery.
The concept that we have here, and I'm just going to drop this to make it easy to start with. The concept that we have here is sort of an extension of responsive design. What we wanted to do was we wanted to be able to give our end users flexibility enough to be able to develop their ad hoc report in whatever way, shape, and form they wanted to. We wanted to give them something that was going to be flexible regardless of what type of computer they're on, whether it gave us the opportunity to start diving into mobile. It gave us the opportunity to not worry about some of the screen sizing issues that we've run into back when we used Flex years ago. We had reports that would render, and you would have a scroll bar for your window, your browser window. You'd have a scroll bar for your report, and you'd have a scroll bar for the grid. And they would all be three right butted up against each other. And if you've ever tried to use your mouse wheel with three scroll bars next to each other, it's virtually impossible. You'll never get it right.
I'll take vertigo.
It's brutal, and our clients hated it, to be honest, and it was very hard to use. And so what we decided to do here is we created a dynamic canvas. And what this canvas gives us the chance to do is to very simply define where our objects go and how big they're going to be and how they're going to respond to whatever screen you have. And so even the canvas itself, if you start seeing, when I collapse this bar here, when I decide to take this to full screen mode, the canvas redraws itself this way every single time.
Is this an actual HTML5 canvas, or is this all canvas?
Calling a
No,
canvas.
what we're calling a canvas.
Yeah, it's probably a bad name, but.
Really?
Who came up with it? You, Paul?
That'd be me. Sorry.
Bad name in the context of HTML5 question.
Fair enough. The canvas is divided up into 5% increments at all times. So it's really simple. We started talking about how do we want to break it up, what's the simple way to do this, and I said, guys, it doesn't matter how tall or how wide it's going to be if we just call it a 5% increment and have everything just resize accordingly. And so the canvas will always be at 5% increments. And so when I go over here to charts and objects and I decide to grab, let's say, a vertical bar, and I drag it over to here, I drop it onto here. I can grab an edge and move it around. Even when I start changing the size of the shape of the canvas, the objects inside of it resize and adjust accordingly. This totally works when you start going into mobile areas. It works on any screen size. It works whether you're in presentation mode or not in presentation mode. I mean, all the different things we've run into trouble with in the past when we had sort of pre-templated layouts in the web are gone now. We don't have those issues anymore. It's a very Web 2.0 thing, but the fact of the matter is it's taking it to the next level because we're actually giving an end user who has absolutely no understanding whatsoever about what Web 2.0 even means the ability to still create something intelligent. The one challenge, though, that you can imagine you run into when you're developing a report is if I start grabbing a couple of different visualizations and laying those out here, I'm going to run out of space really quick, and the fact is we don't ever turn on a scroll bar, ever, because we don't believe that it's smart or intelligent or intuitive to actually scroll through anything in the web anymore. We use our scroll wheels, but you know, in some of the newer layouts in using HTML5, you're not actually scrolling through a page per se. You're moving content around, but it's not necessarily scrolling through a page anymore. And so we don't want people to scroll through this either. We do need to be able to give them additional real estate if it's necessary. Now, in order to analyze data, and we had to think like an end user at this point, in order to analyze data, we need to be able to think about the information on the screen and what they're going to want to do with it. So comparing different elements one to another, being able to see one thing connected to another, being able to juggle and shuffle different elements back and forth. And we don't want to do that at runtime necessarily. We want to make it so that you have something fairly well laid out, but then you have a certain amount of flexibility and controlled flexibility. And so what we added here is called a page container. And this page container control, if you notice, actually has its own canvas inside of it. You think about it like a tab sheet. And so what this does is it gives you a new canvas. I can now go ahead and grab, say, something like a table, and drop the table in here. I can stretch it out to take up the entire, oh, I went off the edge of the screen there. Here we go. Take up the whole space, and then I just want to add a new page, and I can add a new page, and I can add a couple of other things. The next thing about this is that now that I've done all of this, it doesn't matter if I'm on page 1 or page 2 on this. I can compare different views of the information in this page container without ever going away from this information there. Where before, people would want to open up the same report twice so that they could keep the first piece all the way at the top of the report, skip the next two things that were below it, and then have the next report and shrink the screen down a little bit and kind of hold it over the top and then take a screenshot because that's actually what they wanted to look at. It's nonsense. But in this way, we're able to actually do that. You can have multiple page containers. You can shuffle back and forth between your left side, your right side, your top, your bottom, wherever you decide to put them.
These whole people,
Absolutely. The entire application that's building it, the framework that's holding it, the data selector that chose the information, and then what you're going to see later, the rendering application. All of those are the four applications that are all EXT.
Quick question about these little templated areas here in the 5% approach. Do you also have the ability to change the layout when it gets to a certain size? Do you have breakpoints in there, or is it just linear?
Big, huge point of contention. No. Although I paid everybody to be here, like I said. It became a big, huge point of contention. So that's genuine responsive design, right? So when it gets to an iPhone or something like that, or an Android phone, whichever you're a fan of, and you open up a report like this, it will be completely unreadable at that resolution. It's just too much information there. And so all of the code is there to initiate responsive design, but it's not turned on. And it's not turned on because we didn't have time to QA test it, or we didn't have devices and systems to QA test mobile.
It creates a lot
because mobile was not our target audience.
Yeah, we were,
to be honest,
mobile friendly is what we called it, which meant don't wall ourselves into a spot we can't get out of. We're supposed to be mobile ready.
So the responsive mode that we created, though, it was actually very simple using the objects we already had. When it goes into responsive mode, all it does is it says, okay, I'm going to create a page container that takes up the whole screen, and I'm going to put every object on a separate page, and you just scroll through. So all the elements are there, all the controls are there. We're just reusing exactly what we have, and just using the basic responsive design elements in CSS. It just flips the switch and says, okay, here's what your layout actually looks like now. So it's there. We just, like I said, haven't turned it on. There were questions about at what point do we want it to work at. You know, early on it would have been easy. If it's on a tablet, we don't need responsive mode. If it's on a phone, we can do responsive mode. And then, you know, everybody's coming out with 6-inch phones and 7-inch tablets. Like, okay, where do we draw the line here? Oh, well, we could draw it at resolution. Well, not necessarily, because this phone has 4,000 pixels. So that doesn't work either. And so it became a big, huge question, went round and round in circles through our product leadership teams, through our architecture teams, and folks like that. And in the end, basically, we came to the point where we said, mobile wasn't what we were actually targeting. We should probably back burner this for right now. And so while the code is there, it's been pushed out and commented out for now.
This, I mean, this is frankly isn't a good mobile application, right? And I think people, realize that pretty quickly. I mean, the user is not going. Our user is not going to be sitting on a tablet or an iPhone doing this.
No, but he might be sitting on like an old Toshiba with a 10-inch screen.
I think if mobile happens, it's
and
probably going to be more.
If you have a Toshiba with a 10-inch screen, I just offended you.
Mobile's going to be more around what you saw in the message center piece, which is where's my report, how's it running, are there errors, I've told you to schedule this one for Monday morning. That's probably the mobile piece. That's a lot easier to do than this stuff.
Yeah. That being said, we did have one director in the product leadership space who decided that all of these demos were going to be done from an iPad.
Yeah.
Which was great for us because you never actually designed a report because you can't drag and drop. Right? Yep.
So is there a difference in when users come to look at this report that we're building here? Is that a different URL, or how does that?
Yeah, you should show how.
So it's a different application, yeah. And so why don't I go ahead and I'm going to simplify this a little bit by just killing a couple of objects.
Can you show real quick trying to drop things on top of things?
Dropping things on top of things.
So it rejects the drop.
It rejects the drop and understands what can or cannot be there.
Stretching things over each other, all of those different kinds of elements.
And then drop things into the zones.
Yeah, I'm going to hit that in 1 second. You can imagine that for a typical user, something like this could actually become relatively cumbersome and a little difficult to figure out, have I done every step that I needed to do to get here? And obviously, we have our own validation rules that have to run against it that say, have the selections been made? Have it been mapped appropriately? Do we have all the information in order to run this query and generate the information for this report effectively without crashing something or without erroring out? The goal is always to fail early if you're going to fail, right? And so we want to make sure that we inform them as much as possible. The run report button isn't even lit up. But that doesn't do enough. Since we had to do all the validation rules around when we turn the run report button on, what we decided to do was we said, well, why don't we make the user privy to that information? And so we actually have all that information being presented out in a way that the user is able to figure out what they need to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'll go through this kind of quickly, but I want you to see what we've got. So the selections, we have some markets, and inside of the groups, we've got market groups, and these are the specific items that I selected.
I say real quick that data selector is used to add these things to this.
Yep.
Still, yeah. The data selector app, you go into it, grab stuff, it comes in here, and it's sort of your selection of your palette, basically. If you loaded your palette with what came from the other app.
And so I can grab individual levels, I can grab macro levels, however we want to do it. If there are multiple values inside of groups, for example, it knows enough once it starts building it out that it's going to have more than one value in there. We can drag and drop, like I said, at the top level here, and when I go to grab it, it immediately highlights the places that it's valid. So when I grab markets, which is a dimension could be used as a category or as a series. It can also be used as page by, which would give you the opportunity to change the selection criteria for the report slice by slice, if you will. So for markets, I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there to give you an example. Products, we'll go ahead and put as the category access for both of these. Facts and periods, we'll go ahead and I can nest period by product, or I can nest product by period. I can do the same in each of these different places. In this case, I'll go ahead and drop it like that. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Obviously, that should go up there. And there we go. Market product period fact. Period am I missing? Oh, pi 1's missing, period, of course. And now run report lights up. So one of the validation rules that I just ran into is the fact that I forgot one of the 4 key items that has to be on any one of these things, which is those 3 dimensions and then your feds. I'm going to go ahead and grow these a little bit just so that they're a little more useful when we get to it. This is what we call the data view, where we have these drop zones. When we switch back over to charts and objects, though, and I collapse this out, I can switch back to layout mode, and now I can just get a better idea of what the visualization will look like. It actually won't look skewed. That's just an image file that's been dropped in there for illustration only, as it says. You know what I want to do, though? What's that?
You actually had to tell users that this is for illustration only. It's not your actual data.
Oh, yes. Oh, we've had to tell users many interesting things like that. Let's go ahead and run it for
I
now.
always make the bar graph go up in that case, so I think cells are going up. Right.
Yes,
So-
exactly. They were going
the
down.
monkeys on
See,
the-
those first 4 bars are before Nielsen, and the last bar is
Yeah.
after Nielsen.
It's after our analytics group got it. So this bit is actually running fully down the stack. So it ran through all the middle tier of this. It ran through Timco for the services tier. It created the jobs. It eventually requested through our BI layer, data factory layer, down into Netezza, coming back all the way up the stack.
And it's being done asynchronous. How many
Yeah,
layers
that,
are there?
all of that is asynchronous.
It's always-
Yeah, this we said it was what we call. I should remember this. We were on like the 8th floor a long time ago. It's like it's always asynchronous. It only pretends to be synchronous when you want it to be so. So this little screen right here is not doing anything. It's just kind of like
Checking every, is it polling or is it
yeah, comment. Yeah, what it's using right now. WebSockets will be great once people get out.
Feature, I think we should try WebSockets too. But
Yeah, like I said, yeah.
When
Once
we
we can
were
get their
trying out
users on
comment
real
was,
browsers. Real browsers.
98 came up though.
Yeah.
So here's our report, and we have a couple of basic pieces of information. The markets, as I said, that slices across the top here, where I had convenience selected initially, I can switch it over to the drug market and choose apply, and it goes through and it re-renders it based on a different selection. Inside of products and inside of the series here, I can switch back and forth between a couple different things. Why is this taking so long?
They had to go all the way back.
Remember the OLAPs?
I ran the report actually about half an hour ago.
So once they clear cache, they clear cache on you.
Did you clear cache again? This is what you get for using the QA environment.
So while this is spinning, there is no actually thread running behind the scenes. It's just a dummy UI sitting there.
Sure.
So and once the process is complete in the backend, so we get a message on the JMS topic that we subscribe to, and from the server to the client, we have a connection open. That's the comment thing. So we use Ajax connection.
Yeah.
So it pushes the message to the client. So then we go get the record information and then render.
There we go. And so thanks for talking for a second there. Now we've got our drug data.
Now if you flip back,
Everybody
it won't
look
take long.
back at this.
Well, if I flip back now, it should actually go instantaneously because that's all cached at this point.
I don't have
So
any more.
My video
Hit it,
every time I
apply.
get the bandwidth here.
this should be instant. Why is it not? Tree.
I don't know what to
got
think.
anything?
It's QA.
Yeah, caching could be on.
Yeah, playing the
Here
video.
we go. All right, that was all right.
That was better
Yeah, we
than
can do
the
some
first one.
editing.
Here's what I'm not going to do again. I'm not going to change OLAP selections.
Yeah, let's not do that.
So the visualizations are here. As you can see, everything is laid out exactly as we saw it before. We have different types of view modes where we can kind of maximize the objects and make it a little bit easier to see. In this particular case, it doesn't help us much, but if we had a lot of information or maybe a large grid of data, I could actually switch that to full screen, make this one take the whole side, and at least I get some more real estate to work with. I like the animation.
Yeah.
I like the fly.
How did you get the fly on the container? That's pretty cool.
I was going to
There's a
say,
special fly option.
it's funny because very early on we had
Software
animations
bug.
turned on in
It's
our
a literal
visualization.
bug.
So when we started to have the visualization pop up, it would draw it and be animated and bounce around a little bit. And when I saw the fly go across, I was like, Shri, did we get permission to turn that one back on? That's the first thing that pops into my head. Oh well. Again, so this is another application. This is the rendering tool, or the player as we call it. And same type of thing it happens here. Another Ext JS application comes up. It contains all of the different items around the specific objects and visualizations and pieces like that that we're going to render. It has those different slices that we can have available here. We then have functions to be able to initiate an export, to be able to save it, print, email, all that kind of good stuff.
The fun thing is you're still nested within the other one too, so you can go back to your message inbox. You can have multiples of these.
Oh yeah.
You can do
I mean, I collapsed it down just to make it a little easier to see, but we still have the framework over here, and we still have the Message Center tab over there, and we can have multiple tabs with multiple reports going at the same time. So that's a basic overview of the application itself. Sri is going to take over for a few minutes here. Maybe we want to take a couple-minute break, grab some more pizza, something like that. Sri's going to get set up, and we're going to walk through some of the code and the way that we actually implemented some of these different report layout elements. Yeah.
So what is it? Just charts and grids basically that you can drag on here, or I can't really see like the rest.
Oh, sure. The basic elements that we have available are yeah, they're charts and grids, right?
Okay.
We have some other things in there. We have some text, which you can type out some text, which you can embed data elements into the text, and it can color and
So I'm going to pop the keyboard video, and you're going to do.
I'll just bring my laptop over there.
Oh, okay, cool. And then.
So how's it going?
Have you ever used anything out before?
Yeah, I'm already on it.
Oh, yeah, I saw that. Do screen share.
Yeah.
we're playing around with some other
You either pick a screen or application.
So I'll just pick either.
Yeah. And at that point, the next control is video, and you just
charts.
present it as user.
Ah, okay, that makes sense.
And
Is this high charts?
this is AM charts. We're looking at AM charts. We used AM charts in the Flex app. And so when we started looking for production jobs, it turns out that creating components and JavaScript components. And we looked and we said, it's almost one-to-one. This is going to be really easy. Is there anything we're going to lose by doing this? We kind of talked through and said, you know, if we decide to add more visual,
we're going to have quite anything at the beginning.
What we needed, but mainly the easy integration with what we already had as well. We thought.
You want to drop me your cards for your week?
I was gonna say the Nielsen charts, at least in your report.
So I had a chance to.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
Oh yeah.
Demonstration more applications.
Let me ask you a question. So, what sorts of things are you interested
Once you basically build all of the latest systems you could build, it's go do the sort of demo day or
I want one of those too. Everybody send me something. I can trade swag.
Yeah. That's awesome.
He smiled and he didn't agree, but you could tell that.
Well, I mean, to give them credit, it was a long road. I mean, they didn't even have charts to begin with. They just grabbed a Raspberry.
We demoed this back this is what kind of walk through a couple of very specific things. These are just things that we've taken for granted in the past. Should make a huge difference in the implementation. Just unplug whatever, man. If you need power to grab whatever. Are you going to show the templates? Yeah, we've done some, heat map.
I just show like the directory structure so I can see the code to the layout. That's all there.
I'll just list the components and show the hierarchy, and after that I was gonna do like how we did the theming for all the applications.
If they ask too much, tell them it's proprietary code.
Can't show you.
Yeah, exactly. Super secret. Strange to be back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're strange driving off.
You gotta go back to
No, well, this is actually,
that'd be.
I'm gonna go there and take my computer back. I miss my Linux machine, man.
I think he's using it.
I don't doubt it. Did you install Linux or Windows on it?
Visio.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it just runs Visio and email.
You gonna hang out after the show?
Yeah, if you want to start or something, I'll go for a little bit.
I think it's just
I wouldn't say that there's anything special about them, but yeah.
Nope, I'm good.
Get your water in?
I got some soda.
Yeah, please do that. I think I actually have more stickers.
Oh, wow. I don't have any on mine. That's my new one.
Oh, you
I've
cleaned
got a, no, that's, I got.
Oh, yeah.
I still might go for.
Oh, that one was great.
That's awesome.
I thought these two right next to each other were good. Why don't understand memes, indeed.
Yeah.
And you know of my love of Velociraptor. Oh, they have actually a couple in here as well. They have the Sencha space ones. This is a good one. I like that. They have Modus Create ones up there.
You were talking about the different conventions, market, product. I'm working on a project right now that responsible for upstream data for the market and all the different sources that go into that, how it's formatted, and something that this actually your consumers. We actually have a legacy manual that's running IMS. Us files. Our application shows those files. You can add on
Do you know how long is this session for?
Yeah.
Till when hour?
No idea. Until they kick you out.
Yeah. I don't want that. I want to take that.
Did you drive to the city today?
Mm-hmm.
Did you drive to downtown today?
I took the train.
Alright, so you're on, are you sharing screen yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
So once everyone's ready.
We may as well just do it now. It
Okay.
doesn't really make sense.
Pretty much right.
Yeah.
Right. I
Let me
think the
just verify
requirements,
my-
which were making better progress faster, down to, okay, here's our high-level solution.
I brought the swag I could find.
Nothing else. All the architecture. Working with offshore development
Nice.
guys to get them on straight there on telling them what to do on a day-to-day basis. Yeah.
Cool.
We kind of actually did the same thing they did, like we started with jQuery.
Yeah.
She got, it was before I got there, but they got a certain point. So it's like you're gluing things together.
Oh my God! Where's that from? How about that?
No, I use.
Yes, I use pen.
No, you have to actually put a selector on it. The first thing you do when you hit the button opening up, it says "Who are you?"
Yeah.
No, that's a
They should make a razor like that. Where you click a button and it pops up and it asks you, new or used for a blade. You know, if I've only used it once, I'd like to use one.
You would like those pens that put more out there too. The nubby parts of stylus. So it'll work on your phones and tablets and all that.
Does it have the button on it so I can air click with my notes?
We'll work on that.
We'll work on that. Yeah, I'm sure. It's top priority.
And he was a month after I started. What I do is
Why am I what?
does our
Same old thing?
yeah, CVS. You took a position with CVS. This time I got moved into KFA.
Pretty much.
It kind of this vision for more
They're new enhancements.
my role kind of advanced and Nelson left. So when this project came up, they gave it to me, kind of like, here's something for Greg, because we don't have anybody else. He's good with analysis. So I'm just kind of working myself into becoming the SME for the old system, as well as knowing the new system. Top and bottom. So. Yeah. All right. Right. You need something to use it so you don't forget.
I'll take things that don't exist.
Paul's contribution to Nielsen. What is Paul's contribution?
Paul's contribution?
That is the question, honestly. I mean, everybody wants to know what is Paul's contribution.
11S.
When it really boils down to it, it mostly involves drinking.
11S.
We call that culture.
Culture. Oh my gosh,
Culture's
I never
very
thought
big,
of myself as a cultural liaison.
What are the guys you roped into doing?
He volunteered. He wanted to manage.
You're such a volunteer. You make me laugh.
So he's gonna do the part that I can't do. He's gonna walk through some code.
No,
I'll try.
Dun, dun, dun.
Is that my flavor?
This is yours.
Yeah. Get it out of here.
We do a couple passes.
But you can make it. I've started number by two.
From a given file.
I was trying to catch a 450 or 420, which would work nicely. And I couldn't get anywhere beyond like his hometown train station this morning, so I had to go with the parcel.
Did you find this for you?
Then we split up on it. Then we stopped and figured out that one.
Here to be nice. Let's do this.
All right, everyone back to their chairs. What? Everyone back to their seats.
And you really trimmed it up a lot.
No, I don't have it. So, although it's a lot better now.
Yeah, breath was hard.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sure, the new job. How's it going for you?
Crazy busy.
Yeah.
Gonna be busy.
In that mode, it's fun.
Yeah. It's been different because I moved from, I've been in developer and architect. So I've moved over into the engineering kind of running
organizations and how like dealing with that, frankly.
I used to be
Yes.
Yeah, I guess you're right. We're stubborn and not.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think we can get started.
Yeah, sure, get started because I want to go to Stone.
All right, I think we are ready to get started.
All right. Are you ready to go?
I'm ready, yes.
All right. Cool. Sure, introduce yourself, please.
Yep. So, hello everyone again.
Hi, Sri.
So,
Fan.
my name is Shri, and the fact that you're seeing the screen, obviously I work for Nielsen. I've been here for 3 years, and I'm one of the leads for the development teams, which is responsible to build all this cool stuff in Ext JS or Ext JS. This is more like a impromptu that I'm thinking is to walk down a couple of custom components that we have used to build a framework, and which hosts the other ExtJS based applications like data selector, report builder, and player. So I'll walk through some components, and you guys can stop me if you guys have any questions, and I'll be more than happy to open up the code base and see what's in there.
Quick question. Why did you put your girlfriend in the application?
I get to choose my own homepage. All right, so this particular application what you're seeing is, we call it as AWAF, or Answers Web Application Framework. So more than an application, it's as the name suggests, it's like a framework that serves multiple purposes, like hosting different applications or bringing all the components together. So this has been built in a modular fashion, which means there are so many different modules which are combined together to make these as an application, and each module follows the Ext JS 4.x MVC framework design pattern. So just for the naming convention, we have this top thing, what we call as header, and to the left here is the content explorer. Is what basically means is, if users want to view any content, this is where they start, which means they start exploring the content, and then they do a couple of other functions and to view the content. So, and to the right side of it is called the content viewer. So whatever you start from the content explorer is obviously displayed in the content viewer. And here we call it as message center. This is basically any transactions or any reports that the users run, we log it in this message center. It's a grid, and it looks like a email inbox kind of features. Like it has multi-select, like mark it as read, unread, and it's also responsive. Like you don't have to refresh to see the new messages. This is what I was talking about, the Comet technology that we use that updates this message center in real time, like your Gmail. Like when you get a new email, it just pops right in. So we use Comet to do that. And just a brief overview of the code base. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. So here, as I was mentioning, this is the Content Explorer, and if I drill down through the Content Explorer, as you can see, we have the controller model store in the view, and same thing as Content Viewer. Again, we have the controller model store in the view, and again, the Message Center, which is a custom grid, again follows the same MVC pattern. So all these modules are we have a bigger layer of the application controller and the views. So all these modules fit into those views and form the application. So the reason we started with this is in our platform we could have any other applications or any other projects that they want to leverage. Hey, we want to build a message center for our application. So you guys have already done that. So like probably within 2 or 3 days, we can take this out and package it and give it to the other team, and they can plug it in, and it's going to be working right away. So we use some Sencha command. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that's a good point. We use Sencha command, which is a great tool to build and package your application. And for our build scripts and the deployments itself, we use Gradle. And we used to use Maven, and we switched to Gradle. It has like tons more features than Maven, and it's so easy to use. And so we integrate both Sencha command and the Gradle for our packaging, deploying, and for our production deployment, we zip everything into one single JavaScript file where we take help of Sencha command, and it's a combination. The combination works really good for us.
What are you using for theming?
So for theming, Sencha command the tool has a built-in Sass and Compass built into their tool. So, and I was going to actually do a demo of how we did the theming.
Great.
So we use we leverage Sencha command instead of playing around with the CSS style sheet. So we leverage Sencha command, which has a built-in Sass and Compass tools in it to develop the style sheets. So going back to this, so the primary reason we initially switched to Ext JS was the first reason. Before we even went to Daryl, he was supposed to approve this. Is with jQuery we found it very difficult with the multi-tab panel. So here, this is a tab panel, and user can run as many reports as possible. Like they can open like 10 to 15 or 20 different tabs. So with jQuery, we ran into very complications, and at the time Ext JS 3.x was out, and so we did a POC, and we reached out to the architecture team, and they saw a great potential in it, and that's when we invested more into the POCs with the data selector, building the framework, and once our CTO group approved it, that's when we started building everything in the Ext JS. So we had a team, and I was part of the team which initially did the POCs using Ext JS at Nielsen, and then now there's so many different business units and platforms within the Nielsen that they are using Ext JS after this.
Did you guys use what was called Designer probably back then to do any of the development, or did you do all the coding by hand?
Everything was by hand.
I think very, very long time ago, it was initially by Pandora. Do you remember that demo that's in the...
Yeah.
So I remember Eric took Pandora, and it was like weeks where you would still see the name everywhere.
Yeah.
Like, come on, at least change the
We were
name.
actually working very closely with the folks at Sencha itself, because at that stage it was still in the early stages before MVC came out with Sencha. So we were working closely with engineers at Sencha to implement some of the custom features and all this. For example, the tree view that you're looking at the left side, it has a drop-down button for each of the nodes. So it was not available with the Ext JS 3.x. So where we had to manipulate the DOM elements and put this drop-down menu to each of the node in the tree, and we ran into performance issues. And fortunately, the next version of Sencha, or the Ext JS 4.x, came up with a built-in feature to add the custom components in line for the tree. So that was pretty good.
Would you guys go back and use Sencha Architect now, or would you still do it the way
Most of the developers in the team are still using some third-party libraries for some syntax within Eclipse and just doing it by hand. So we're not leveraging Sencha Architects. I know a couple of people like doing the POCs from the architecture team. They're currently using it, but not necessarily the development team.
There are definitely other groups at Nielsen that did. I forget who, but I know they would reach out occasionally.
In our almost we are using Sencha Architect.
Yeah, I did. It's pretty slick.
Yeah. Yeah.
So did you go live on 4.0 or? were you
So
live?
we initially had a pilot production environment as a demo to the clients where we went live with the 3.x, but but when we finally rolled it out to the clients, it was 4.x.
Been an interesting upgrade process.
Yeah, it was quite painful to upgrade because with 4.x we definitely wanted to leverage the MVC. If we did not wanted to leverage MVC, the migration would have been easier. But the reason, uh, if not all of it, for the most of it, we had to rewrite everything because there was so much of customization in the code. To strictly follow the MVC pattern with the 4.x, we definitely thought it was a good investment from the long term to switch to MVC. It's going to be easy for maintenance for a couple of new releases to come and all that stuff. So we took that pain and rewrote, and it worked great after that.
So is each module an Ext application, or is it just code that Ext dot application?
So you mean to say if we have built a custom modules into the framework?
Yeah, because I know Ext usually only likes to have one Ext dot application.
Yeah, wasn't that was some sort of third-party thing initially, but did that change to more built-in?
Is that this, I guess, kind of sub-modules?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were using I think I can't remember, we were using a third-party tool to club everything together, but with the MVC it was pretty straightforward. So even though it's a module, it's not we didn't want it to build an application by itself because we did not want it to render multiple applications to just frame to render one application. Just built modules in such a way that it's just the front end or JavaScript files only, and then form one single application. So I think as Paul went through most of the applications or features, so unless you guys have any specific questions about any custom components, so I can go over a couple more components and see what's.
Yeah, a quick question about that, because maybe it's alluding to some of what you were asking, but we have the UI framework as kind of the parent, and we serve up the other three apps with iframes. So they're like separate applications, and so whenever one app needs to communicate to another, it's firing JavaScript events. I don't know.
Yeah. So with the again with the, I think it was with Ext JS 4. So this particular frame here inside. Yeah, this particular frame here inside is a different application altogether. So we do a lot of communication back and forth between the parent and this application, and the Ext JS framework provides something called as fire event, and you can put a listener, and you can subscribe to that event. And other than that, the communication across the iframes, we do the traditional JavaScript parent dot event features, and when the parent is calling the frame, we do the child dot and trigger call that event.
So each app here is an iframe containing its own data.
Correct.
So here's Ruby. There's the main app, and then there's inside of it you're seeing just one. Well,
So this is all sitting inside a portal, right?
Yeah, everything is secured. We have one entry system. All the applications are secured within the portal.
Sitting on.
Yeah.
Sort of your window.
Yes.
You're at your apps.
Yeah.
They're all talking to each other.
Correct.
And we're actually a child iframe to the actual answers portal for big boy there on top.
So there are at least like 20 to 30 different other tools across Nielsen hosted in this portal. So that our project or our application is just one of them. So it's just a one single entry point for all our client users to log in. So if they, depending on the solutions that they are subscribed to or the solutions that they have purchased, so there are other tools. This is one of the reporting tools. So Nielsen has plenty of other tools. So if clients, if they want to access any of the tools, they go into one single portal, and in there we provide the navigation link, and the links take to the particular applications.
Every tab is an iframe, right? Every tab
So this framework application itself potentially comprises, or it like this part, it hosts several, like I think about 6 to 8 different applications. So we have integrated communication with 6 to 8 different applications, and most of them are ExtJS. There are a couple of them which are not ExtJS that we will be potentially be converting them to ExtJS. There are like a couple of jQuery-based applications, couple of Flex-based applications. So everything we were able to integrate, and so far so good. But potentially we are going the HTML5 route, and we'll be seeing everything be converted into ExtJS in near future. Okay, and in this, there's a lot more to show, and it's obviously specific to this tool, and it's very content-based and user content-based, and it will be going. The scope will be out of ExtJS. So what I'll do now is show how we did theming with. We have so many different applications, and Nielsen follows a standard of themes, like it has a particular font, the color, and the gradients, and the background images, and all that. So it's defined by the user experience architect. So any front-end applications within Nielsen have to conform to those designs. And so what we did was, since there are so many ExtJS-based applications, so we have a project that only builds the themes, and that particular single theme can be shared by any ExtJS-based application across the Nielsen, and we'll make sure it is very generic, and all they have to do is take this project and plug into their ExtJS application and run their build scripts, and from the classic theme, it will be converted into the Nielsen theme in a matter of a couple of hours.
It works on EXJS.
Right now, we are trying to keep up with the new versions of ExtJS that comes up with, since our production release is based on the 4.2. So our themes are right now 4.2. So lately, what we have observed is even though there are new releases, and the themes do work with new releases, but we are seeing like less and less updates that we would have to do with the new versions. Like from 4.1 to 4.2, 4.2 was a great, there were like so many different changes, but from 4.2 to 4.2, the changes were so few that we had to spend like just a couple of hours to update the themes.
What will be the base theme for this?
So I'm just going to walk over a little bit demo of how we converted the base theme, the theme that ships out with the ExtJS, to a Nielsen theme.
Is that the Neptune theme, the base one?
The base one, I think it's a classic. So it also comes with a couple of different themes, like the Neptune is one of the one. I think there's something called Neutral. Mm-hmm. And so we can use any one of those as a base and then start making changes on top of them.
Wow.
Yep.
Is that out?
Sorry?
Is that out?
Yes. Yeah, it's been out since May.
For building the application, you do a single build or multiple applications are built into that?
So it depends. So we use so many common libraries behind the scenes, and there are a few applications, like 4 or 5 different applications which use these common libraries. And we want to build those applications in a certain sequence, so we define a build script that builds the application in that particular sequence. So there are certain builds that we do not want to, applications we do not want to include them in the sequence, so we have a separate build script. So we have both. And yes, with the Gradle, it has there are great features for something like that. So that can trigger multiple builds across the platform, and you can also sequence it the way you want. Okay, before I go into the little bit of hands-on demo for theming, any other questions? Great. So I quickly wrote up a sample ExtJS application with with the dummy data, which has a tree and a grid and a form here. And this is how the Ext JS application with the classic Ext JS theme, this is how it looks like. So if you go to the structure of the project or the Ext JS packaging, as you can see, these are the themes that Ext JS 4.2 gets shipped with. It has classic, Neptune, neutral, classic window, and gray, and stuff like that. So you can use any one of these available themes, and obviously for Nielsen, we want to build a custom theme. So to start making the changes to the theme, so before I go there, so this I've used Gradle for this project, and for the UI or for the UI application, I'm using the Sencha command to build the application, and Gradle also has a built-in server where I can run the application. And as I mentioned before, theming nowadays is more than playing around with people used to play around with the CSS files directly and changing and all of that. So from that would be styling, and theming is more like you can play around with the variables, like and once you have the variables, and you can use the tools like Sass and Compass to build those, take those variables and convert them into the CSS files, and you can, so that you don't have to touch the CSS files, and then use it directly within the application. And Sencha command has these tools, Sass and Compass, built into the Sencha command, so you don't have to specifically install Sass and Compass into your system. So this is the standard template of any ExtJS application would look like. So once you create this application, there is a folder that gets created called .sencha. Inside there is a configuration file. So if you open that up, so here is the application theme it uses by default, ext theme classic. So if I change it to like ext theme Neptune, and then I have to rebuild the application so that it picks up it builds the CSS style sheets with the Neptune theme. So I go here and I do Sencha app build. So while that is building, what it does is here. So the packages is the folder where it contains all the themes. So this particular command, which is triggered through the Sencha command, it goes to this particular Neptune folder, and there are definitions or the variables where they have changed the color and the font and all that stuff. It's going to pick up that, and it has the and the build scripts. It will package all this and convert it into a CSS, and it will push those CSS into wherever it needs to go within your web application. So this is done, and all I need to do is just start my server and just refresh the application, and it should pick up that particular theme. So this is the Neptune theme. So now, obviously, with Nielsen, we want to customize or change into a particular color or font. So, and I'll be showing you how easily we would be able to do this with the help of Sencha command. So what I would do is I'll go back to the main folder where we have the application, and I'll go to the place where we have the packages. So packages is the folder where we have all the themes. So I will tell to create a new theme folder. So Sencha, I think it's generate theme, and I'll call the theme as demo theme. So if you go back to your file structure, so there is a folder called demo theme already created, and it creates a necessary configuration for this. And if you look at this file called package.json, and it will tell you what is the base theme you'll be extending to build this new theme. So I will change, instead of using classic, I'll change to use, I want to start off with Neptune as my base. So I'll change that, and once that is done, so there is a folder called SAS. SAS is the one that where you would go in and start customizing whatever you want for the new themes. So there are two things when you're building your theme. So one is you're changing something that is common across the universe of the application, like everything that I see in the application needs to be blue instead of black. So each and everything, the background, the panel, and everything. So these are the universal or global variables that you'd be changing. So those go under the folder called VAR, is variables. And then comes to the customizing part. Say if you have a tree grid, and you want the tree grid alone to have a different font or a different color or a different background, and you want certain images to go into that particular tree grid that my application will be using in Nielsen, but there is another application at Nielsen using tree grid, but they don't want this particular customization, but they do want the blue thing. So anything that I want to be customized, I define in this source, and whenever I define a custom theme in the source, I give it a name. So unless you use that name in your code, it's not going to pick up that style. So it's going to pick up the generic style that you define outside that. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'll go to this. So this is obviously empty, and I will change the color of the base application. So all the global variables are extend from this class called component in Ext JS. So that's the reason the name of the file will be component.scss. And once you have that, what I'm doing is I'm just changing the base color to I think this is red. So all the panel headers and everything will be red, and the background gradient to be gray instead of white by default. So these, as I mentioned, these are the global variables, and if you go to the Sencha API on their website, they have, it's pretty straightforward, and they have the resources are pretty great to look up all this configuration and all that stuff, and it's very user friendly to know all this. So once I do this, basically now I say, okay, I'm done. Now I need to generate the CSS that's going to leverage this new definition that I've given. So what I'll do is I'll go back here to the packages, and I'm trying to I think it's the Sencha package build. Let me see. So what Sencha package? I think I have to be inside that folder. So I'll go to the demo theme, and I'll do Sencha package build. So what it's doing now is it's taking the base theme, which is I have defined as Neptune, and it's overriding with whatever I defined it with these custom colors or the custom for these variables. And Sencha command needs Ruby and to run the Sencha command, and the website itself provides a clear instructions what are the tools and needed. So you just install Ruby, and which is used to run the Sencha command.
Now, what resources did you learn, or did you use to learn all about how to do the theming and whatnot?
So there are some great examples on the Sencha website itself, and obviously we took a couple of weeks to develop the theme. So when we face issues, like there are so many people. We had close to 20 people working just on Ext JS when we were building all these products. So and most of them were pretty much experienced, and we also with the Sencha licensing, we also had a premium support with the Sencha engineers. So all we had to do is just send them an email or send them a note, and they used to just jump on and help us. So now, once I've done packaging this theme, what I need to do is go back and go to that particular config folder. So here, instead of telling it to use the Neptune theme, I'm gonna tell it to use the new demo theme that I've created. So let me quickly look up the command if whatever I did was right. So this is the Sencha documentation site. So it's a very handy, and they've done a good job with this tools. Yep. So I went back to this particular folder. From Classic I changed to Neptune, and from Neptune I'm changing to my demo theme. And now I'll go back and rebuild my application from this the newly packaged demo theme. So I'll just run the same command again to the Sencha app build. So while this is building quickly, and as I mentioned, I go to my demo theme and I define the global variables inside the var folder, and source is where you create your customized thing. So I'll just show you one example. Let me see. Then we'll see if we'll be able to rebuild the whole thing again. For example, if I'm changing custom styles to a panel, so the folder structure I create has to comply, or it has to match the class hierarchy defined in the Ext JS, the framework library. So for panel, I know the class is ext.panel.panel. So I have to create a folder called panel, and inside panel, I create a folder called file called panel.css. So it follows that hierarchy. That's how it picks up the custom styles.
This is where you define the custom specific CSS styles for panel.
Yeah.
You automatically override.
So yeah. So if you go to the API, and for the panel, it will list the attributes of all the CSS attributes that the panel uses. So if you have to change the border or the header color or the font and everything, so it will give the name of the variable. So you pick that name and give it your custom style or custom theme, whatever.
So because it's made the same, that's the overriding mechanism?
Correct. So seems like this is built, and I'm just going to start my server. If I remember, I think I gave a gray background and a dark red to the headers. So let's see if it works. So that's the gray background, and this is the color to. This is the global color for all the panel headers and background and stuff like that.
The really cool thing about this is because it's applying to all of the basic class parameters for each of these different objects that you've got, you can apply these things across multiple applications. And so for a system like what we created where we have 4 different applications where we needed all to be kind of themed around the Nielsen colors and the way that we kind of implement all these different objects and whatnot, it's a very simple theming solution across multiple applications that's completely reusable as long as you're not using, you know, maybe you'll use one component that's a little different in one versus another, but all the common elements can be contained in one place, and it makes it a lot easier to maintain. It's completely reusable and decoupled really from the application layer of that thing.
So I can't really see all the folders, but it looked like you changed the theme in an app, in the app section, right?
So
But I'm confused as to what you just said, because you said you sort of had 4 different applications, but you're using one theme.
Right.
So how do you
here,
one theme? How do you get each application to point to that one theme?
so what we do is, so that's a very good question. So you're exactly right. This is, since I'm doing the demo, I'm doing in one single application.
Okay.
So what we do is we have a completely different application which does nothing but the theming.
Okay.
So what we do is we import the project, and whatever application is using has to reference the other project that we have built using our build scripts. So instead of telling to go fetch the CSS from here and go reference this other project, build the CSS from here and import then once the CSS are built, include it in my application.
Basically, we create a new package. So for each theme, you can create your own theme. So we create a Nielsen theme. So this is just like our stuff. We create a Nielsen theme that extends and then we also take advantage of the Ext workspace. But kind of neither. So we have all the common thing in one separate project. It's not really a standalone app, but we create some dynamic dependency and then we kind of make some symbolic link so that it keeps track, like for the Ext workspace and application work, we need to follow certain kind of procedure. So the application needs to, or the workspace needs to be a parent or a grand.
Everyone saw that there.
Assessment like folder. So we kind of have the freedom script to create a symbolic link. So we have one central location for the workspace, and then we have all the separate application, and then we create a symbolic link back to the same workspace. This is how we share. Or share the component or share.
Question GXT, is the theme shareable?
Essentially, it's a GXT product. While the output looks nearly identical to the Ext JS product, under the hood they're completely different. The GXT product, if you're not familiar, is it's a Java framework. What is it? The output on the web is nearly identical. You're writing Java, so it's JavaScript, based on the Google.
We had 2 products, GXT. Yeah, so you once tried and you dropped it.
Yeah, unfortunately, the under the hood stuff.
So this is what I was talking about. So I've already done the configuration while you guys were talking. So this is the mixin that I've created for panel only, and I've given it a name. And I've told for this particular mixin, just change to a different color. And I go to my code, and wherever I use the panel, I just use that particular name under the parameter called UI, and I'm telling in the CSS to use this particular class. And once I repackage, and it's the same way, go back and rebuild the application so that it picks up all these new styles. And once you come back to the application, so this is, I change it to the green. So this particular I change it only to this particular panel. So this is like it changed to that particular one.
The tracker doesn't do it justice there.
I was to say it's really muted.
Yeah.
On my screen, it looks tremendously green.
Yeah. Same thing when you're doing those charts in our application. They was like, wow.
Yeah, this isn't the greatest of projectors.
So yeah, I think this is theming with using the Sencha tools at the high level. So.
I've got a quick question for you. You didn't demo this. I'm just curious because I don't know if anyone watching who's unfamiliar knows about it. Do you make use of the Sencha app watch command so you don't have to rebuild the application every time?
No, we don't. So, I'm not sure. Probably Jason would know because he was close to this when we were building. Yeah. So I think I'm sure we did not rebuild every time we changed this. I'm not sure what we were using.
We actually use a theming. I think you used it.
Yeah.
But not we're working on the UI component in the business model. So they don't need to.
Yeah.
We don't need to update it.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure that those of you watching and saying, oh, he's making one change, he's going to rebuild the whole app. You don't actually have to do that every time. There's some watcher that notices when you make a theming change, it'll just rebuild the theme, not rebuild the entire app, and it takes not nearly as much time to see the updates on it.
Sencha app watch.
You could visit the Apple Watch.
Yes.
To be fair, when we started in 3. whatever, the Sencha command and all that stuff was a little. Some of that was flaky, and there was like betas of it and all that. So
it was new. Very.
Yeah, it was all Node, and it was getting that installed on people's Windows machines was next to impossible. So I know that's the reason we weren't doing much of that.
Yeah.
They got tired of me yelling at the
So I'd first off just real quick like to thank you guys for coming out. Got a very interesting mixed house of we got half Nielsen people, we have folks that I haven't had the chance to meet, and thank you guys for coming out and giving us the chance to show you some things. I hope that it was gave you some ideas and sort of inspired some different things that you may be able to do with the Ext JS. I do want to do one thing, and Jason's going to be embarrassed here, but I want to say thank you to Redpoint Technologies. This is a shout out that I have to give. Redpoint is a consulting company that we contracted with for a number of folks who helped work on this application. Jason's one of those guys who's here with us today. And if you're ever looking for consultants, and this is not a paid promotion or anything like that, if you guys are ever looking for guys in the Chicago area who know the stuff with the Ext JS, the mobile, the Sencha Touch, any of that type of work, these guys are phenomenal. And if you ever find yourself in the need of a couple of phenomenal folks, they're definitely good people to know. So I have to give that shout out because, Jason's like, call me. Jason is not a sales rep. Jason is a programmer. He is definitely one of the fantastic programmers we've all worked with.
Were you doing a movie or something?
But that just like how they use it. That is really easy. Yeah, we got ready for you.
Straight out of your soul. I need you to open your browser. I want to run all
Cool. Do you want this?
This
It's all connected. This particular spot is not super easy.
Wait, that's not. Oh, no, it was live. All right, cool. Thank you, sir.
This is funny. My marketing people get the crap from me too. So
Nice. All kinds of stuff.
And thanks to Cars.com for taking Daryl from us.
All right, so share my screen.
By the way, we're hiring jobs. It's a nice downtown location, 3 blocks from the Union Station.
There you
It's a
go.
bar on the first floor of the building. We're in the same building as Pug Mahomes.
Oh.
I'm glad we don't have a Nielsen-hosted
And I'm
Please edit that out.
Yes. Yeah, we'll edit this out at the end here. All right, so I mentioned as everybody was walking in that you needed to have RSVP'd on our meetup site before we got started today. In order to be eligible for some awesome prizes, we're going to raffle off. And that's because I've got this horrible application that pulls in off of the meetup.com API. So what we see here is everybody who's RSVP'd yes for tonight's meeting. And the images worked again.
Wow. Is there more?
There are more.
More than that. Oh, okay, good.
Yes. You must be present to win. And to go quickly over the prizes we have to give away tonight. I've got 2 Sencha t-shirts. A t-shirt from a company called Modus Create. They're one of Sencha's partner companies. A book called Sencha Touch in Action. A couple of USB thumb drives. 2 Chromecasts. 2 USB phone chargers. Some sort of Bluetooth speaker. Cars.com and a license to any JetBrains product of your choice. If you don't know who JetBrains are, they make a series of IDEs and development tools. If you take the most expensive of their licenses, it's like $600. So really good price. And all this application does, and maybe you can't see this well on the back, this is built with Sencha Touch, so please don't say this is the only thing Sencha Touch can do, because this is literally a horrible application that I whipped together in like 5 minutes.
Why did you use Sencha Touch on the desktop app?
Because I wrote this like 2.5 years ago when Sencha Touch came out, and I went, I want to build a Sencha Touch app. So like I said, took like 5 minutes to build. You can build much cooler Sencha Touch applications. And I hit pick winner at the bottom, and it'll pick somebody off the stack. And so in this case, Pablo Felix, come on down. You get your choice of any of the prizes over here on this table here, or you can have the JetBrains license. Your choice here. And,
For the cup. Only one.
And we'll try to do this quickly here. Here you go. Sencha Touch in action. Good choice. James. I don't think James is here tonight. No, James is not here. Wah, wah.
Wait, I gotta get that.
Todor. I don't think Todor's here tonight either. Wah, wah. So sorry. Leo. Leo is here.
Leo. All right.
Said, your choice of these or a JetBrains license. Your call.
I don't want it. Is the Chromecast report?
The Chromecast over here. Paul Jones.
No way, it's rigged.
Here, you got a Sencha t-shirt. Sweet. Because Nielsen provided half the stuff here, so okay. Sencha, that's me. I won a prize. I am not eligible. Okay. Clay, I don't know, Clay, if your name on Meetup is lowercase C-L-E-Y, anybody?
It is.
Is it? If you hadn't said that sarcastically, I would have told you to come on down.
It's pronounced Tom.
I am going to butcher your name. Yush. All right, come on down. Like I said, JetBrains license still on the table. I need to like write that on a card just so I can like. Ah, take it. There you go, sir. Jason Wu, come on down.
You're selected. Next contestant. Price is right.
Right. Dimitri, come on down. And if your choice happens to be the JetBrains license, let me know, because I have to fill out a form online that actually send that to you. It's via email.
So what's like titles of some of their products that?
IntelliJ IDEA would be the big one, or WebStorm, PHP Storm. If you're a Visual Studio user, ReSharper is from JetBrains. The only product I don't think I can give away, it happens to be UTrack. It's like the task management cloud thing that they have. TeamCity. Oh, I also can't give away TeamCity, unfortunately. Those are the only two. Yeah, right. No, it's a single personal license. It's not a commercial license either. So if you want that, shout it out. Otherwise,
I already have Gadget Ultimate, so.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Fortunately not, no.
So you're saying that you still have JetBrains license?
I still have a JetBrains license.
I need to renew one.
All right. I will grab you afterward to get your info. Theo 60102 test.
That's Todd.
Not here.
Not here.
I
Okay.
haven't texted her. Where are you?
Guru. Is that also pronounced Todd?
Not yet.
Brian Norquist. All right. Come on down. The cup is still here. Yes.
Still there. He's programmed that for Todd.
Antro. Daryl Pratt. Yay!
Oh darn, you won the cup, didn't you?
What, this something?
I don't think you want that one. That's the iPhone like 3 or something like that. Yeah, I don't think you want that.
Good deal.
Jeremiah. Jeremiah. Abraham. All right. Still got a few things here. Jade.
Arvin.
So you got T-shirts, or thumb drive. Kashik. All right, come on down. Apologize for completely mispronouncing your name there. I'm known to do that.
Marvin, you make sure you call straight.
Yeah.
Chandra. I think you're rough with the T-shirts.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, unfortunately, everybody else here, sorry, but thank you for coming. We think we still have pizza and pop, and hang out and talk tech, and join us next month in the city at CNX, where we're talking about what are we talking about? It's not far from Ogilvy Station, if you know where Ogilvy is.
Isn't it on Jackson?
It's 217 North Jackson.
Yeah.
Next month, we're talking about implementing custom URL schemes with iOS, Cordova, and Sencha Touch. So, very cool. But yeah, otherwise, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.